You need to watch this video if you are struggling to play a mage in the bottom lane. The number one mage I would recommend picking is Espeon for a couple of reasons. The number one reason is it's early secure, right? Swift is incredibly good. It's got great range and great burst damage, and you also get a level 4 evolution, even though it's probably not advantageous to get the skill stored power level 4, but you'll like the secure. So you see here, you want to save that Swift to keep yourself in a safe position to get that secure on the contested farm. Now notice at this stage, I could be going back to my own farm, but because I've got such great range with Swift, I want to try and snag the enemy farm off them with that skill. And if that's something I'm able to do, then I'm going to put the enemy team behind a lot on experience. So as you can see, I go for that, but I'm very, very late. It's probably more of a wishful Swift than anything, and if I actually had have saved it, I probably could have secured that Audino there. So a little bit frustrated myself there. We let the enemy get their 2 farm, and honestly, like, you need to be putting it, if you've got this contested farm here and you're using something that does well early, you can be getting that farm and you can be getting a lead early, right? So now we look to take this farm, but I'm saving my skills because I want to take this contested farm here. And as you can see, I got the evolution there, which was probably not great. I actually probably should have turned around and gone for the Swift, because as I was evolving, I was unable to use Swift, which means that I wasn't actually able to get the secure on that Audino. And you can see I actually, I just launched a skill because I'm like frustrated myself, right? So in lane, we go even on experience. We got one of the contested, and then the enemy team got one of the contested. And see how my lane has EXP share? I'm almost level 5, right? If he didn't have an EXP share, I'd be in a bit of trouble. Okay, now with Espeon in particular, your level 4 to level 6, you've got bad secure, because stored power does not really do a lot of burst damage, and you don't necessarily get to choose who you lock onto, but stored power gives you a lot of great mobility, so you need to use that to your advantage. How you need to be playing this level 4 to level 6 is by putting pressure onto the enemy to force them to run away, and then quickly trying to burst down your farm as quick as possible with your lane partner, because it's likely that it's going to get stolen by another enemy. So that's what we go for here. I go in with the bees, and as you can see, I'm just trying to pressure the enemy, right? I'm trying to force the Masquerader away, and then when he's away, we're able to pick up this farm here, right? If we were just contesting it, we would have lost, right? They would have out-secured. And remember, you want to be securing in this game, right? So at level 6, you're going to get Psybeam, right? Now, just a note, this Hooper was absolutely fantastic. So Sleepy Kimchi, you're a very good Hooper player, and I appreciate the SoloQ, right? See there, you've got bad secure, right? Even if you save the stored power, it's probably not that great secure, right? And Growl is not that good either, right? So you've kind of just got to hope that you can get a bit of Psybeam action going, right? The bottom line stance is that we want to push them far back so we can take as much of the contested. So we get level 6, and see how I'm running to this like 5 seconds before it spawns, and our Zoroark is there 4 seconds before it spawns. Look at their Dragapult. He's going to be late to this because he's taking this, and by the time he kills it and runs in, he's not even going to be there. So you can see how quickly it gets mowed up by Zoroark and an Espeon, just us two alone, right? All of the farm is gone within 2 seconds, 2-3 seconds. And look at this guy, he's like, you know, going in with the sneaky move, and look at him, he's like, where'd it go? Where's the farm? Right? He didn't even see me, and he would have just seen the Zoroark running up, and he's like probably saying, I'm not going to engage on a Zoroark. So it just goes to show, guys, you need to be at that middle farm on time. If you're the enemy jungler, you need to be on point with your rotation. Because if he was there and putting some pressure on the Zoroark, and maybe one of his other teammates was there, they would have been able to do something. So to be honest, even if he went in by himself there, that's probably not great. He would have, I'd suggest his Mimikyu should have came in, and maybe his Masquerader instead of getting that back bow to it. But anyway, we're going to focus on our own gameplay here. So your next target after that is, you're probably pretty close to level 7 at that stage, like 6.5, 7. So your next goal, again, all I'm looking to do is pressure the enemy. Now, the only reason I'm going in that deep is because I know I've got the Hooper portals, and to be honest, I was actually trusting him with how he was playing, right? So if we've got the heals, we can reset. And so we're getting 2 lots of damage off onto them for their 1 lot of damage off for us, because we're able to get the reset, which is really good. So we can push them back to try and get as much of the farm, or to just try and pressure them back, make them eat their lane berries and stuff like that, right? Use that stored power mobility to your advantage. When you click stored power, you can dash in a direction. always dash towards your own base if you're unsure where the enemy is, right? Keep yourself in a safe position. Okay, you get your Unite move at level 8, so you can see this is the first time I've touched a back Baltoy, and generally I will only do this if it gives me an immediate power spike, just because I think that you should have some pretty good presence in your lane, right? And you can see how annoying it is to try and take on an SP on the Sword Power, because I'm just able to dash around, and the Hoop is giving such great portals, so it just makes it very hard for the enemy team to try and push our goal zone, right? Notice how we haven't scored any points on their goal zone at this point. When you're using this Mage in lane, you should not be aiming to score in the bottom lane. If you want to score, this is the lane for you, up in the top lane, right? Have a look at all the scoring. All the scorings happen at the top lane, right? In the bottom lane, no score, and, well, they've actually scored someone on our pad, so good for them, right? So the enemy team has a score lead, but we're definitely in an advantageous position here because our Zoroark is, honestly, he's playing pretty well there, and the Hoop is getting great resets. So you can see the Hooper actually gets both of them out alive and allows them to get the reset. Meanwhile, myself and the Masquerade have just started ripping the objective because we recognize that the enemy team was not going to be able to be there, and if we ripped it quickly, then we'll be able to get it. And I actually made a very, very poor engage there on the enemy Mimikyu. I didn't realize, he was down there with the Shadow Claw doing the amount of damage, and then the damage as well from behind with the Dragapult, and also the burst damage from the Masquerade. I actually got picked off. So right there, my engage up with the Registeel, that's a very poor engage, right? I had my Unite move, I didn't even use it. So I should have tried to go in, maybe engage with the Unite when I saw one of them there to try and help support the team, and then use my stored power to dash away and defend the goal zone. So huge, honestly, that's a pretty bad misplay from me there, right? And you're going to see why. Because it allows the enemy team to really capitalize here, right? Look at all the money that's on the ground, and look at how, like, we're just left with a healer who's pretty weak and a Masquerade who's probably just going to run away. And by the time I'm able to respawn, we've just given up so much score. So that's a classic poor solo queue play, right? Classic poor solo queue play. So at this stage, I'm hoping that they're going to stick around. So I eject in with my Unite move, and because I saw I was going there with the Zoroark, I would never do that by myself. Because I knew I had my jungler there, we have the damage output to get these kills, to try and equal off some of this score, and also let the Zoroark get some stacks in, right? Now at this stage, I know that the bottom Bs are going to be spawning at 550, but I decide to leave all of those for my Zoroark, and this is honestly a tricky position here. If you're playing with your 5-stack, obviously the conversation is going to be a lot different, right? But this is top objective with the Regieleki. This goal zone's on 17. I actually panned up and had a look, and so I see this objective is honestly not very valuable for our team. And have a look at all the farm on the map. We've got an entire mid farm there, and we've also got 2 lane farm. If we let these stick around, that is just like EXP down the drain per minute. It's completely waste experience. And if we're level 10, we want to maintain our level lead. Like, we've got a level lead over the enemy, and we've actually got more farm on the map than the enemy. So for us to go up and try and contest this and get very little value if we succeed, versus if we lose it, they get a lot of value. They'll get all the score and they'll get kills, and that'd be pretty bad for us personally. So my thought process here is, all right, I will eventually get to that top lane, but I'm going to take some of this farm. I'll probably take 1-2, and then I'll run through the mid. Depending on how badly our team's getting pushed on their pad, I'll either use my stored power, like my skills, to stay there and secure these Baltoys, or I'll use my stored power to continue to dash from Baltoy to Baltoy up to this lane as quickly as possible. Right, so I've got all that in my head, and that's what you can do with Espeon. He's got great mobility, and he's a fantastic defender of the lane, right? Amazing defender of the lane. So this is how you want to be playing honestly, this is how you want to be playing if you're a Mage player, right? In this bottom lane in solo queue, especially with something like a Espeon. Okay, this is, again, a solo queue conversation. So as I can see, my team's really not getting pushed that much. Blue buff is incredibly strong on your mages, and notice here, I could be, and this is something I see a lot of players do as well. They like commit to taking one buff, so they feel like they have to take both, and they get extremely greedy, right? This is the trade-off I could do. Yes, a buff gives me a lot of experience, but you know what else gives the enemy team a lot of experience? Scoring like potentially 50, 60 points and taking all this farm and killing our team. So it's more important for me to try and get up and support my team as much as possible. Zoroark engages. To be honest, our team holds pretty well. I've got the Unite move to help defend there, and that's something that Espeon does really, really well with the Unite move. It's amazing for defending goal zones. And you also get this like crazy cooldown reduction with that. So now that we've got the top goal broken, we can take this objective and we see a lot of value in it. Not necessarily because we want to push it in, right? Remember, it's past the 5-minute mark. They've got the jump pad. So it's past the 5-minute mark. They're probably taking this farm here. They're clearing their own farm, which is pretty much, if you look at what the enemy team's doing, that's exactly what they're doing. They also have Unite moves. So there's no reason for our team to push this. The value that the Regieleki is going to give is it forces a couple of their team to stay static here, and we've got vision on them. So we can look to try and take some of their farm, or at least run through their mid, because if we run through their mid, then we're going to have vision on when their farm spawns next, even if it's not there. So we want to try and take as much of the contested farm as possible when we've got this Regieleki here. Like, it makes taking contested farm a little bit easier. And in the meantime, we've got our Hooper who can go to the bottom lane and take that bottom objective, right? So the Masquerade actually kind of like sat in the bush and waited for me, which, you know, pretty decent play from him. And I'm going to base, and I know that my Hooper player is going to be able to port us into the bottom lane very shortly, hopefully. But I'm not actually entirely sure if that's what happens. I actually can't quite remember in this game. Maybe he saves his Unite for another time. Our team actually does get the secure, and so at that stage I was off, you know, like farming, thinking that our Hooper's gonna port our team down for that second objective there. Now you can see here I could stay and take this farm, but I'm using this stored power to kind of chain up and try and get this defense. So Zorok does such a good job defending, and in the meantime he's running and I'm there just in the nick of time to try and get some of this defense happening. Again, you can see the Unite move in defense, and we get 1 kill there from our Crustal, which is pretty good. And then I'm just looking to kind of dance around with the stored power. You can see I'm dashing in a direction that keeps me relatively safe, and there we get the Hooper Unite to help defend the goal zone. So I guess that's fair enough, right? It's worth the trade-off, and we go in here, we're engaging in a team fight, and, you know, we come out decently. So we've got like a minute and a half before Ray, and we can see this farm on the map. Now this is always a tricky spot, right? Because it's very flexible each game. So I'm looking at this blue buff like it's very tempting. Our Zorok player is playing fairly aggressively, and I'm going to assume that he's probably not coming back to this particular rotation. Now if we quickly take the buffs now, there will be one more rotation before the Ray. So I'm keeping that in mind as well. We also want to make sure that this goal zone's defended, because it's advantageous for our team to maintain score lead for one, but also have this flux zone available to us, so it makes it harder for the enemy team to fight us at Ray if they're pushing as far back. Because if we've got the score lead, the enemy need to engage on our team at the Rayquaza fight. So I'm keeping all of this stuff in my mind, right? And my power spike's 13. If I manage to hit 14, that's you know, that's fantastic. But my main thing is I'm going to try and hit level 13, and I want to try and make sure that we're keeping the top goal zone defended. So as you can see, I'm running towards this top goal zone, and this is another thing that you can do. I'll stand around about like a little bit, you know, in my flux zone behind the goal, because you don't necessarily have to be standing on the goal zone to defend the goal, right? You don't have to do that. So as you can see here, that's pretty much what I do. I stand here, and then I can just tap the enemy team away. And if they try and engage on you in the flux zone, there's no way they're going to be able to do that against an Espeon. You've got way too much mobility, right? Way too much. And then I use my eject, which is probably not the greatest, you know, move there. And then I get caught by the Shadow Sneak. I knew I shouldn't have stood that close to the wall with the Shadow Sneak, and we actually allow the Mimikyu to get the resets. And their team actually ends up getting a lot of value there, which sucks. So I end up getting picked off by the Mimikyu, which is probably like pretty poor play on my end. Shouldn't have stood so close to the wall, but you know, it happens, right? So 30 seconds left to the Ray. This farm will disappear, so we're not really worried about that contested farm. We're making sure that everyone on our team can hit their Unite moves and hit their power spikes, right? So Zorok's hoping to maybe hit level 14. I will probably only need like a Baltoy to hit level 14, and we're just trying to make sure that the Hooper gets the Unite move. Now, they secure this Regieleki, and you can see our Crustal goes to Unite on their Crustal, which is honestly not a very good play, because we don't actually care about this Regieleki. Now that the enemy team's destroyed our tier 1, we no longer really have the score advantage, so to speak. Like, I know it says it on the screen there because we can see the score, but we're actually not a whole lot short, right? Like, we've only scored a little bit in their tier 2s, so we know that we've probably got the advantage on score, but it's not necessarily enough for us to play very passively at the Rayquaza, because they can just put like a 40 score in the back cap or a 50 score or something like that, which is not a whole lot of money, right? That's only like 20, 30 money, and they've got the score lead. So we need to be careful of that, right? And they've got a Masquerada, they've got a Crustle, like they've got Pokemon who can easily do that. So at this point, I'm thinking I do not care about this Regieleki, and I wish our team would let it walk. But our Crustle's throwing his defensive resources to try and get some of the defense off, and yeah, that's just what happened. Now, if your jungler goes to take a buff, don't take it off them, right? The last thing you want to try and do is tilt them, okay? So you're going to see this Ray fight engages. The Mimikyu actually makes a very good play on trying to dive onto our Zoroark. But I think with what his team is doing, it's probably not that great, right? His team's trying to get this 100 score in here so they can have a huge score lead, right? Which is what happens. The Hooper helps get himself out, and the Dragapult is supporting there, so they're probably going to win that fight if they continue to take it on there. But in the meantime, the Mimikyu's probably not going to win the fight against level 14 Zoroark and a level 14 Espeon, even though he's picked up the correct person to get his Unite move onto. Like, he wouldn't want to Unite move the Crustle, for example. He wants to try and get the Espeon or the Zoroark, so it's a pretty good play from him. And we get a lot of damage output. We're able to use the stored power to be, dancing around it in the mid. We get one kill there, and then I'm trying to store power into the Hooper hole just to get some extra health reset, which is very, very advantageous for me. Now, right here is probably the biggest throw I think I've ever done in my life. I underestimated the amount of damage that the Crustle Revenge actually does. So you can see I'm like almost on full health, and the Crustle's not even attacking me. This is just the AoE from his ult, and it picked off 2 of us. That's probably the worst throw I've ever done in my life. At this stage, I'm thinking like, man, I just threw the game completely, right? Completely threw it, okay? We haven't used our Unite move, the Zoroark or I. We got picked off by, out of all things, the Crustle ult, which is like, it never really happens that much. So at this stage, our team is like trying to play passively. Our Masquerade is just trying to fake them out with the double team, and our Crustle, it kind of looks like he's going for a bit of a back cap, even though it's probably not going to make that much of a difference. But at least in doing so, he forces them away from the Ray Pit, and then he's maybe able to waste some time there, right? And in the meantime, the Zoroark and I have been able to get the respawn off, and at this stage, right, as the Mage player, it is your responsibility to try and pick up a kill, because as soon as you get a kill, you're going to be able to like steamroll in this refight. And the reason you're going to be able to do that is because generally in the refight, the teams don't have Unite moves, except if you're as bad as I am this game, where you actually do have Unite move because you didn't use it because you got killed by Crustle. So I noticed that there's a Masquerada here, and I just clicked my Unite move because I'm like, yep, he dies here, right? We have to kill him, so we get our team in a 5v4 position, or a 4v4 because our Crustle sacrificed his life for us, and then we can continue steamroll from there. So that's what I do there, and we actually get quite a lot on with the Espeon ult, and our Zoroark catches quite a few with his ult, and that's very advantageous for us. He does super well to get away. I'm here following up, trying to get as much damage off as I can, using our stored power and the Psybeam to do a whole lot of damage, and unfortunately I was actually able to do some decent stuff there in the refight, and then we get the team wipe, and we're able to win the game. So our team overall played really, really well, and yeah, it could have been pretty scary there. So there was a couple of little misplays, but however, if you are playing this Mage role, this is generally the route that you want to be going around, okay? Now, because I know everyone loves damage numbers, I have to show them at the end of each game. Generally, you should be probably doing about 80k with Espeon if you've played it properly against pretty much any matchup. It's super flexible, it's super easy to play. You can dash around with the stored power, and you should be taking half the damage than you deal. It's like, if you only deal 50k, you should only be taking 25, right? It's like, generally that ratio is, with your Mage, that's probably what you should be aiming for, but the numbers have got to be upward of like 70, 80k. This Pokemon does so much damage for free, you don't have to aim, you just have to put yourself in a good position. And you need to be using your Unite move as well. Smart. So that's what we're going for there, right? And you can see our Zoroark does really well too, so well played to him.